to another episode of Cosmic Conversations. I am your host, Marla Martenson, and I have a really interesting topic today. I am with Lama Tsultrim Allione, who is the founder and resident Lama of Tara Mandala, located outside of Boulder, Colorado. She traveled to India in her late teens, and at the age of 22 was the first Western woman to be ordained as a Buddhist nun. After living in the Himalayan region for several years, she returned her vows and became the mother of three while continuing to study and practice Buddhism. She has been awarded the International Outstanding Woman in Buddhism by a panel of distinguished scholars and practitioners in Bangkok, Thailand. She's the author of Women of Wisdom and Feeding Your Demons, and her new book, which I've got right here, Wisdom Rising, A Journey into the Mandala of the Empowered Feminine. It's so beautiful. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So, when I was diving into this book, before we get into the mandalas, the introduction of the book talked about modern feminism and what's missing in that Me Too movement and what women are seeking more than anything. Can you talk a little bit of, what's missing from that? Because it's still in the news now. It's a big topic.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
Right.
Well, from my point of view, what's missing is a process of empowerment, like I-N, empowerment. And so this would support the outer empowerment that is extremely important. And also, empowerment is not only about being effective in terms of political and social change, but in terms of coming into wholeness in yourself. Coming into a state of wholeness out of fragmentation and into a state of being inwardly empowered.
Exactly, and, yes. So let's get into the mandalas, decoding the mandalas. And you've got some beautiful, she's got beautiful images in this book, like on colored photos of mandalas and Dakinis. So and I had not, I know about mandalas, and I've had friends take mandala classes and making them, but I was never sure what exactly they're for, what a Dakini is. So let's get into that, because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Instead of just a piece of pretty art sitting there. So
yeah. Well, the mandala is a universal template of wholeness, and it's found in many cultures around the world. I focused on the Tibetan tradition of the mandala, which is really highly developed. And one of the things about it is that normally, as you said, we think of a mandala as maybe something that we see on the wall, like a painting.
Right.
But in the Tibetan practice, you become the mandala, and it's three-dimensional. So there's a practice of entering into that quite physically, in a way, through the visualization, which is a very different experience than looking at something on the wall.
Yes.
So the mandala, the actual word in Tibetan is kilkor, which means the center and the swirl, or the center and the circumference, what's around the center. And so essentially the mandala is a circle with four quadrants and a center. And as I said, this appears in many different cultures. It's in Peru, it's in Africa, it's in Native American cultures, and so on. But the Tibetan mandala was really developed to a very high degree, and probably you have seen or heard of sand mandalas being created in libraries or in various communities around the world by Tibetan monks.
Okay.
So those sand mandalas traditionally would be created for an empowerment ceremony in which a group would use that to enhance their visualization of themselves as the mandala.
Okay.
And the mandala is actually like a house or a mansion with four doors in that Tibetan tradition. So what I did in this book was to unpack this foreign teaching of the mandala in a way that makes it accessible and practical for the West. And doing the definition of the 5 families, what is a Dakini, how do you enter the mandala, and what effect does it have on you? That's essentially the body of the book, beyond my own experiences. And as you said, I draw in through the larger lens of what's happening with women right now and how this supports that.
And then Dakini, so what is a Dakini?
Yeah. Dakini in Tibetan, again, is Kandroma. That means sky goer or sky dancer. There's different levels of the Dakinis. There's outer, inner, and secret level of the Dakini. In the book, I talk mostly about the inner level of the Dakini. So these are embodiments of wisdom. They're female, and they're generally fierce. They have a fierce appearance, which I think is important because that aspect of the feminine, the fierce, wise feminine, has been forbidden, essentially. There's been a great fear of it. And so the Dakinis embody primordial wisdom, and they have different aspects, 5 different aspects. And so essentially when you connect with Dakini power, and there's actually another book called Dakini Power. I don't know if you've ever introduced the author of that.
No, I'll have to do that. Yeah. That sounds great.
But anyway, the Dakini power it's like, you know how when we grew up, we had very limited ideas of what the spiritual feminine might look like. Maybe the Virgin Mary or something like that. That was about it.
Right.
Not a full picture of all of our energy and capacity, a disconnect generally between our sexuality and our spirituality, and a sort of kind of tameness, a domesticated feminine. Right. So the Dakinis are undomesticated feminine, which doesn't mean that they're kind of out of control or causing havoc everywhere.
Right.
But it's about a deep level of freedom and fullness in the feminine.
So a Dakini is kind of like a goddess that you work with, if you will. So you'll choose your Dakini kind of to because there's different families. Talk about the 5 families. Yeah.
Well, it's not like you choose your family. You kind of are your family. And so when you enter the mandala, you really become all 5. I'll talk a little bit, shall I, about each one?
That would be great.
Sound good? Yeah. So in the center of the mandala is the Buddha Dakini.
Okay.
And she is white, and her element is space. And she's a transformation of ignorance, which takes the form of depression, denial, confusion, obfuscation. There's that kind of feeling of bewilderment and spaciness. And then that becomes, each Dakini transforms, or the encumbered pattern transforms into the wisdom. So the wisdom of the Buddha family is all-encompassing wisdom. So space-iness becomes spaciousness.
Oh, okay.
So that's number 1. She's in the center. In the east, and I'm going to describe these as though we're in the mandala. So in front of us is the blue Vajradakini. This is the element of water. The obstructed pattern is anger, both hot and cold anger. And the wisdom is mirror-like wisdom. The mind like a mirror.
Okay.
Clarity. That's the east. To my right, and your right, in the south, is the Ratna Dakini, and there the color is yellow, the element is earth, the obstructed pattern is pride, which has underneath it feelings of inadequacy and not good enough feeling. And then that becomes the wisdom of equanimity and enriching presence, prosperity. That's in the south.
Okay.
Behind me and you, because I'm building your mandala too, is the is the red Padma Dakini, and this is the element of fire. The color is red, and the obstructed pattern is grasping and craving, compulsive desire, and seduction, need to seduce, but it's not about relationship. It's more just that need to seduce, and then that transforms into the all discriminating wisdom, discriminating awareness wisdom, or another way is a kind of wisdom of discretion. And so that wisdom is about being able to see differences, being able to clearly understand and know relationships between objects and things, colors, sound. So that family is Padma family, and it's connected to the arts. Then to the north, to your left, my left, is the green Karma Dakini. This is envy and jealousy. The element is air, and it's the transformation of those patterns, but also workaholic tendencies, speediness, and so on, into all-accomplishing wisdom. The ability to do a lot, but to remain in the flow rather than the force. So that's the basic mandala of the 5 Dakinis.
So, and these are it's so interesting, these are colors of the chakras, too.
Yeah.
And then you have the 4 directions, like in shamanism, and so it's really interesting how it all kind of ties in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These systems are often connected, but I think it's important to understand also how they're different. And to really understand a tradition, because you can get into the idea of, oh, it's all the same, it's all one,
Right.
And of course on some level it is, but if you really learn one thing and go deeply into it, it can open and reveal itself. And
yeah, I mean, reading your book, I was like, wow, this is a lifetime of study. I mean, it's a lot of, it goes real deep. I mean, and then the other, that whole culture, and you learn the language and all of that. So it's a lot of, but the way you break it down is we can learn to work with these, the Dakinis and the Mandala, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how can, give us an example of, like an exercise from the book of how somebody can make change in their life with this.
Yeah. Well, shall we try something together?
I'd love to.
Okay. So let's try working with anger.
Okay.
Since a lot of us are feeling some of that these days. So what we're going to do is not work with the full Dakini, but just work with the color and the sound connected to the Vajra Dakini, who's in the east. So we'll start, maybe just close our eyes and connect with anger as you experience it, perhaps recalling a situation in which you were angry. This could be a hot kind of anger or a cold kind of rigid, cruel anger, an anger of just disgust and disappointment, however you experience it. So take a moment and think perhaps about an occasion when this arose and feel that in your body. Notice how that anger feels in your body. Where in your body do you feel it? Just take a moment to feel that. Okay. So now we're going to work with the seed syllable of the Vajra Dakini in the east. And that's Ha, H-A. And we'll sound the Ha together.
Should I keep my eyes closed?
Yeah, because you're going to be noticing things that you're feeling in your body, and it helps to keep your eyes closed. So we'll sound Ha, and with the Ha, connect with the color blue, like a deep blue, like of the autumn sky, Colorado. And allow that light, that color, to go through your body and into all the areas where the anger is. So the sound and the color is going into your body. And then simply notice what happens to the anger as you do that. So we'll start with the anger. Take a moment again just to connect with that. And then we'll sound the seed syllable Ha. We sound it long and slow, and with the idea that the sound is going into our body rather than pushing it out into the environment.
Okay.
Feel the blue light in your body. Your body becomes blue. And notice that area where you felt the anger, how that feels now. What do you feel there? And you can open your eyes and tell me what
Yeah,
did you feel?
I thought of some specific instances with someone that I got angry about, and it kind of affects my whole body, and so I just really put the blue in everywhere, and I feel it energized me and sort of empowered me, and felt like dissipated the anger, and just the energy remained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something really simple that
Yeah.
we can do, and there's 5 emotions, and so we can work with all of them. Just that's a very simple way. Another form of simple meditation, it's really quite amazing, is working with the elements. Each Dakini, as I said, is connected to an element. So you could go and sit by water. Where are you?
Los Angeles.
Yeah, so you have the ocean there, right? You can always go to the ocean.
Or what about we have a swimming pool here at the house. How about sitting next to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, the swimming pool is fine.
Okay.
So what you do is try to get as close as you can to it, so you're really, it's in your vision when your eyes are kind of looking down. Or if it's at the ocean, of course, your eyes can be up more. And then you enter in Tibetan, the word is jor, which means to join. And so you literally join your mind with that element of water. You fix your gaze on the water somewhere, but then relax it. In other words, your eyes aren't wandering all over, looking around, horizon or whatever. They're there, they stay there, but they're relaxed. And then you enter into union with the water. So there's no journey. There's no me looking at the water. It's just the water and your awareness. And you sit like that, maybe for 20 minutes or something, and then notice how you feel. It's quite amazing. You can do that with fire, with air, with earth. You would lie on the earth, and with air in the wind. And then space, you lie on your back and you look at the sky.
Yeah. Look at the stars if you can see any. You probably can see
Yeah.
a lot more out there in Colorado than we can in Los Angeles, depending
Yes,
where. Yeah,
definitely.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting in your book that story about when a woman walked up to you and you were going to be doing a retreat, and she said, "How come you're blue?" Speaking of
Yeah.
the blue, we just
Yeah, that
worked with the
actually
blue.
happened.
Yeah, your whole
Yes.
aura was blue or something, so it can embody that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had been doing this practice quite intensely for about 8 years of the blue Dakini, and she had gotten the empowerment for that practice in Austria. It's a lion-headed Dakini,
Hmm.
and she had come to Bali to actually try to do a retreat
Yeah.
of that practice, and somehow she could see it
Hmm.
around me. I mean, we were just like two tourists at a Balinese funeral ceremony that we were both invited to.
And then she got very sick, and you described what was that healing technique that you. Is that part of it? Part of this whole thing, this specific healing that you do, or that was something else?
That's a different. That's the practice that I describe in my previous book, Feeding Your Demons:
Mm-hmm.
Ancient
Okay.
Wisdom for Resolving Inner
Yeah, now
Conflict.
this was fast. I love this because I'm a Reiki practitioner. I use crystals. I do energy healing. I love learning about that. And and I had some lower energy attachments in myself a few years ago when I was delving deep into all the spirituality and attending a lot of events, and so I had my teacher remove them. And you said that you saw
Mm-hmm.
ghost-like wisps coming out of her,
Mm-hmm.
sexual area, and you asked her if she had been abused, sexually
Mm-hmm.
abused or molested, and she had said yes, and it was removing, and you could see
Yeah.
that. So that was just
Well,
fascinating.
what was amazing to her is this had been a complete secret. She had never told anybody because she was adopted,
Hmm.
and it was her adopted father, and she was afraid that she would be rejected by
Right,
him
right.
if 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 she spoke up,
Hmm.
and so she'd been holding this in herself for so long, and yeah, it was very intense to pull it out, and um, but I think you maybe remember she had fallen from the second
Right,
floor.
fallen, yes.
She had a very bad concussion, and after this practice, after I did that, she sat up, smiled, and got up and walked away like
Hmm.
nothing had happened.
And then the other person, your eyes were closed, but someone witnessing it said she was in convulsions and this and that, and while it was happening. And so when you
Yeah.
saw the wisps of whatever it was, these attachments, was that through your third eye that you're seeing this? When you were seeing
Yeah,
them leave?
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
There's something called chut eyes.
Hmm.
This practice is called chut, and it means to cut and or to sever, and you're cutting through the ego. And what happens if you've done this for enough time and deeply enough is that when you're in the practice, you can see certain things.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't like just if she just lay down in front of me and I looked at her, I couldn't see anything.
Hmm.
But when I'm in the practice, something shifts. It's done with a drum and a bell and
Must you meditate in order to be empowered? How does meditation work in this? Because we hear in most spiritual practice, meditate, 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 and a lot of people
yeah,
have trouble with this.
yeah, we have resistance to meditation because meditation means stop, stop,
Right.
and we're not used to stopping. The whole impetus and focus of ego clinging is outward.
Hmm.
We're going out. We're grasping. We're aggressive. We're just moving out because of the rupture from the grounded being.
Hmm.
When we turn our minds back, mind to look at mind, we stop that outflow. And there's resistance to that because we've been doing it for lifetimes.
Yeah.
so, so all meditation, whether it's mindfulness meditation or other kinds of meditation, is in some way turning that outflowing energy back to look at its own source. And And that is really important because it's getting at the fundamental problem that we have, which I don't know if you read the part in the book called One Ground, Two Paths, Two Results. But
no, tell me
the
about
one,
that. Yeah.
the one ground is the ground of being. So the ground of being is the all-pervasive, formless awakeness of the universe. But it's formless. We come from that. Mm-hmm. We came from that, but we're still coming from it. We're living in it. It's everything. That ground of being radiated, expressed itself. In that expression, awareness separates from it, from that source. If awareness separates, and then in that experience of separation experiences anxiety and suffering because of that feeling of separateness, the ego is formed, what we call in Buddhism ego clinging. When ego clinging forms, we want to resolve it. We want to feel safe. We want to feel that unity that we come from. And so we develop strategies to do that. However, those strategies don't work. They're going the wrong direction, toward grasping and resisting and ignoring. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. So this is what I mean by this outward movement. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh yeah.
Can you experience that?
Yeah.
So that's one path. So this teaching is called One Ground, Two Paths, Two Results. The other possibility, which is available to us at any moment, is that we turn back, that awareness that has radiated out from the ground turns back and recognizes itself as inseparable from that ground. When that happens, we're liberated.
Right.
So that's the two results.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think most people, including myself, the resistances will sit there, and then our mind will keep thinking of things. We can't turn it off. And then I was doing that yesterday. I meditated last night about 20 minutes, and I was thinking of this and that, and this program I want, and I'm like, wait, stop it. Yeah. What's going? It slips in. So I think with practice, it can quiet.
That's part of it. Like when you meditate and you're distracted, don't feel like, oh, I'm such a bad meditator. That was a bad meditation. I'm really not good at this. That's the nature of our mind. We've been doing this for lifetimes.
Right.
So it's very challenging to shift that outward conceptual thought of, what's the next program I'm going to do? What do I have to do? What am I going to have at breakfast? To turn that around into awareness of awareness. It's challenging and it's training. That's why we call it practice of meditation. We practice it. And, I always say that any meditation is a good meditation when you just show up and do it. And even those meditations when you feel like, okay, I sat for 20 minutes and I was distracted the entire time, something has happened physiologically to you, and something has happened spiritually also.
That's good to know. I love that.
Otherwise it can be really discouraging.
Right.
If you think you're supposed to be perfect, in the beginning. Yeah.
Now, so where is your retreat center? And tell us about that, and is anyone welcome? Tell us a little bit about your retreat center. Yeah. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's called Tara Mandala, and it's in southwest Colorado. You fly into Durango, Colorado, and then it's about 60 miles east of that in a little town called Pagosa Springs that has actually the biggest hot springs in the world.
Wow.
In the town. Which is a nice thing you can do on the way out of a retreat or into a retreat. The retreat center is about 10 miles outside of town. It's 700 acres of beautiful land, very, very quiet. And it has in the center a temple, 3-story temple that is in the shape of a mandala. And each level has a different symbolic meaning, and it was created by and ornamented by Tibetan artists and Bhutanese woodworkers. So it's carved and painted. It's really, people have done films just about the temple and books just about the temple. And then we have retreat cabins for solitary retreat. So you can come for a group retreat, which would take place in the temple, and anyone is welcome. There are some practices that are for beginners. We have like meditation 101, and some weekend retreats and so on. And then we also have programs that run for 10 years, that people are guided for 10 years on their path through these programs. And we have people in 5-year solitary retreats.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
beautiful.
That was my original inspiration, because this took place in Tibet, where there was many people in long-term retreat, praying for the world, essentially. And now we have so many people out in the world, and so few people actually praying for the world,
right,
in retreat. And so that's an important part of what we do. You can also do solitary retreats for 4 days or 2 days, or whatever time you have. So those are the options. We have delicious vegetarian organic food.
Nice.
3 meals a day, and it's really, people say to me, like, you talked about Tara Mandala and you showed me pictures, but I had no idea until I came here.
Wow, beautiful. You guys, the links are below, and you can get the book Wisdom Rising on Amazon, and the links are below for that. And Lama, thank you so much for joining us and explaining about the Dakinis and the Mandalas. It was such a pleasure. And
thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Until next time.
Bye. Thank you.